All right, good morning, everybody. This is a super fun topic this morning that we want to talk about. But, I measured out my caffeine this morning. Apparently, I got a little too much. So, good morning, everybody. The caffeine has hit. Woo! So, first, before we jump into today's topic, Colombia. This January, January 2024, Coach Jill Patterson and I will be taking a camp, taking a bunch of people and doing a cycling adventure, touring, educational camp in Colombia. Jill goes every year. She races there and has developed a great knowledge of the country, the best roads, the best mountains, and great contacts there, great cities, great villages to stay in. So it's going to be a fantastic vacation training in January, towards the end of January. Jill Patterson, one of the top female cyclists, in Virginia on the East Coast. Current national champion, United States cycling national champion for the Gran Fondo. She won that We Do segment challenge. Was it 2 years ago now? Yeah, that Lance Armstrong and George Hincapie did down in South Carolina. So, she is just a major talent, and she is also a coach, and she is just, a very approachable person, both when it comes to cycling and when it comes to learning the concepts of coaching and racing. So that's going to be a fun thing. In the show notes below, there will be a link, and so please follow that link. All right. So today's concept is pretty fun. We have a lot of data coming in, and a lot of my athletes are finishing up their base period. My base period for my athletes goes anywhere from 2 months. I have some juniors kind of on that 2-month schedule. I have some masters athletes that are more on a 5-month schedule, but typically 4 to 5 months every year. I really love base training and how to do it. So I look at the data from 3 different cyclists, specifically their time and zones. And I want to ask one question: who will win? So these 3 charts are from the 3 different athletes, and this is their accumulated time in zones, which we'll go through. Their accumulated time in zones for a 4-month base training period. And if we were just to look at the time in zones, can we make any guesses as to who is going to win the race? And it's a pretty fun thing to think about. So before we jump into that, there's just a little bit of theory. If you're unfamiliar with time and zones, and the accumulated time and zones and the benefits that certain zones have towards your training, I have another link down in my show notes called the links to a video called Endurance, the Lost Zone. It's all about, accumulating time and zones. If you were to take all of your accumulated time and zones and look at it for a year, where should most of your time be spent? It's a fascinating topic, and it's one that, I did not nail myself until about 4 years ago, right? And so I was, your typical trainer. I nailed all of my intervals. I nailed my tempo intervals. I nailed my VO2 intervals, but other zones I didn't nail. And so it ultimately caused me to plateau. It caused me not to do as well in the events that I wanted to do. And so in the last 4 years, I guess, I've really changed everything up. But let's look at just a little bit of theory, one chart of theory before we jump into the thing. And this is important because this is Andy Coggin's Training and Racing Using a Power Meter Introduction 2003. This is from his seminal article that came out of actually March 25th, 2003. We're almost 20 years from that path-breaking article. We're not talking about the book. We're talking about the article. In this article, he had this chart, okay? And it's expected physiological performance adaptations resulting from training at levels 1 through 7. And here's all the basic things that he categorized. And if we're out there zone 1, basically moving but not doing that much work, what happens? 0. Zone 2, we got a lot of adaptations. This is where the adaptations happen, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so basically, zone training is not new to Andy Coggan. People were, dividing up durations and intensities to make you a better athlete, to make you a healthier athlete, to prevent overtraining, to prevent injuries, and to get you faster by training at certain intensities. And so he's not the first to do this, but in that chart, at the end of this PDF, this chart just freaking blew up the world. And this chart still holds true to this day. It's an amazing chart. It's a chart that I use for myself. It's a chart that I use for my athletes. And it's, jump into that chart, jump into zone training if you're new to zone training. Okay, so let's look at some base training. So let's go through these 3 athletes and just look at their base training. So first of all, if you know the theory of endurance sports, if you were to look at your accumulated time in zones for the entire year, this is what we want to see. We want to see most of our work in the lower intensities. Professionals train about 90% of their time in these lowest intensities, with zone 2 being their number 1 time of accumulated zones. And so if you think of Michael Phelps, he just wasn't out there jamming his, every single workout. He spent, months of the year doing dedicated zone 2 work. Zone 2 is where the magic sauce really, truly happens. So if we look at this athlete, he did 4 months, 143 hours of training, total TSS 7,900, 90%, 99% indoor, 1% road, okay? And in his zone 2, he had a massive 101 hours dedicated to zone 2 work. And so, for me as a coach, this really makes my heart smile, because that is just a great base period. All the many things that we want to accomplish in that 4 months, building that foundation, this athlete is ready to go on to his build phase, his specificity, his peak phase, and really start getting out there to nail some events. But this athlete is actually fascinating. So look at it again. This was 99% indoor. This particular athlete lives up by the Great Lakes, and it was a brutal winter for them up there. And so 99% of his time, accumulated time in zones, is on the trainer. He had 1 outdoor ride, and that could be an error. I'm not sure what that was. I don't remember that. But 101 hours of endurance work. Now let's jump into this guy. This is a fascinating guy. 201 hours of accumulated work, total TSS 11,000, 24% indoor, 63% road. And look what he did. He's at 62 hours zone 2. This looks good. This looks good. All of these zones really look good because, we have some threshold in my base plan. We have some VO2 work. We have some anaerobic capacity work. All of this is great looking data. The difference is that he is 63% outdoor doing road, 24% indoor. His time active recovery, we typically want to keep this, less than 25% of your accumulated time for the year, and he rocks it out. Great job. Now, let's look at this guy. This guy is me, okay? So this is a fascinating tale. First of all, this guy, he's in the mountains of Pennsylvania, right? So he is doing great route selection. If you want to hit your zone 2 work in the mountains, you have to have dedicated routes to be able to nail that work. So here I am. I'm in the mountains of Virginia, and here are my time and zones. Now, for me, I took a little different strategy this year. A couple things happened. One, for 2 months, I needed a $120 part for my car. 2 months. I didn't have that. So I was really stuck here in the mountains. So every every base season, I like to head just a little east, and we have what's called the Piedmont here in Virginia, which is these lovely roads that just have these long, slow rollers, perfect for base training. So I divide my, mountains I do in the spring, and then in the summer and the fall, and then I do mostly Piedmont work in the base period over the winter period. And 2 months, I did not have a car waiting on a $120 part. So I was stuck here in the mountains. So my time in zones is a little skewed because of that. Then I did most of my riding on gravel. So I've had a gravel bike since 2019. But this year I really want to do some of the long, big events. I used my gravel bike, to do all these gravel roads around here, to lead gravel camps, all that kind of stuff, skills camps, things like that. But I really wanted to do long times. And so your route selection is not as what you can get out on the road. So when we look at my accumulated time in zones, there's a reason why I only have 71 hours in zone 2, and I have a little too much time in zone 1 because I'm going on massive descents and gravel roads. It's harder to dial in your zone 2 work. But I had 213 hours of my base period. I had 10,500 TSS, 36% indoor and 50% road. Now this year I also took a different tact with my indoor training. Past couple years, past 3 winters, I was maybe one trainer ride through the base period over the past 3 years. This year I wanted to bring in a little more trainer ride. I wanted to change up my stimulus, the stimuli, and you can't deny the fact if you sit on the trainer for 3 hours and you're just doing a zone 2 workout that your legs feel dramatically different than what you do outside. So I wanted to change it up a little bit more. So I was definitely on the trainer more this base period than I was last base period. So let's go back through really quick. So 143 hours, total TSS 7,900, 11,000, 10,000. Now notice when you're training indoors, your TSS, your time, 143 hours. But all 3 of these athletes are training hardcore for 5 days a week. Now notice 143 hours, 201, 213. This athlete at 143 hours, why is he at 143 hours? He would love to be much higher than that. But why is he at 143 hours? If you're only going to train on that trainer all through winter, it's hard to do a 6-hour ride on a trainer. It's hard to do a 3-hour ride on a trainer, right? So because he is stuck in the trainer, he is actually reducing his hours. He would have done a lot more if possible. So one of the things that we'll do for this athlete is this spring, as soon as the weather turns, we're really going to get him out there for some long rides just to have some time in the saddle on actual roads, okay? So looking at these 3 people, who would win? That is the thing. And so this gentleman, one of the things that, when it comes to cycling, it's not just all theory. It's not just all data. It comes down to the concept of performance. Okay. So if you want to win a race, the person who performs the best wins the race. If you're stuck on a trainer for 4 hours, are you getting descending practice? Are you getting cornering practice? Are you getting practice of the ability just to hold your zones over rollers? Are you getting any of that, right? You're just not getting that. And so this particular athlete, we know we have the plan. We know what we're going to do for these next 2 months. But if even though this athlete had the most time in zone 2, I would say that he is probably not going to. If we had to say who's going to win the race looking at this base data, I would argue that because he was indoors for those 4 months and we had to go out and race, he's going to be hampered. Doesn't mean he's going to lose, but he is going to be hampered by that 4 months indoors. I mean, generating watts outdoors is not the same as generating watts indoors, or speed for that matter, right? So speed is crucial to win a race, right? So generating speed, generating watts outdoors is far different than doing all of that indoors. This gentleman did the best that he absolutely could for the base period, and I mean, this is the hero award right here for this guy, right? So that's the indoor. This is the outdoor. This guy outdoors, most of the time, rocking it out, learning how to descend, learning how to climb, learning how to generate speed, learning how to generate watts, learning how to pace himself. I had an athlete just yesterday, did the Grand Fondo National Series in Florida, and he was just talking about pacing. He calls me up right after. He said, pacing. It's all about pacing. You have to pace, right? But that's what we worked on. Since this athlete's been with me, we've been working on how to pace those segments in those Grand Fondo National Series races, how to pace those races, how to pace those segments, what to do between the segments. It was all about pacing. And he called me up and he's like, Lee, it's all about pacing. It's just all about pacing. You have to pace. And so that was magic to my ears, because that's what we have been working on. So this athlete, going outside, he is learning how to pace in real world conditions. He's fighting the cold. It's cold in Pennsylvania. He's fighting the colds. He's fighting the temperatures. He's fighting all that stuff. And so, yeah, this guy did a great job. And so I would say he has the edge over this guy right here, just simply because he's out there. He's working more muscular groups. He's working more muscular groups at different intensities, different cadences, neuromuscular manipulation. He is doing everything, right? And he got more hours because, even though he's training as much as he can 5 days a week, this guy was training as much as he can 5 days a week. This guy got more hours simply because he could do longer rides outside. So he generated ultimately more TSS, more time in the saddle, more practice, more dedication to skills than this gentleman right here. And then me right here with 213 hours, my time, my time in zones for zone 1, I really would love to have, I would love to carve this section out right here and place that right here to zone 2. But, I'm still a strong contender to win the race again as well, simply because, I am out there. I am in the gravel. I'm in the rain. I'm in the wind. I'm out there learning how to generate watts and speed on gravel, with the descents, with the switchbacks, with everything the gravel racing can throw at you in the mountains of Virginia. So who is all going to win? Well, it's a toss-up. All three athletes are incredibly fascinating. They're all completely dedicated to doing great work out there. Myself included. I consider myself an athlete, and so we're all just out there hacking it out. And the thing is that why do you want to train your time in zones? Is that you want to develop certain physiological adaptations in a certain way over a certain period of time. And we want to make the most out of your time, right? We want to make sure that you're getting the biggest bang for your buck when you're out there on the bike. So who's going to win? It's a toss-up, but I would hand it to the person, the people who are out there all season, hammering out there on the road, all that great stuff. And so, so this is a fun analysis of 3 different base periods. So, hey, if you want to reach out to me, here's my contact information is down below. I would love to talk to you and talk about your time in zones. You want to look at those time in zones? Have you ever looked at your time in zones? Let's talk about it. Let's see where you can do better. Let's see where you need to bring it down a little bit. Let's see where you need to raise it up a little bit. Would love to talk to you about your time in zones. Thanks, everybody.